What's up, everybody? My name is Dell. This is Dell on Movies. Thanks for hanging out with me. And if you've been here before, thanks for hanging out with me again. And today's video, we're going to go through David Fincher's entire filmography. I'm going to do a tier list ranking. After watching The Killer on Netflix, I've seen everything in his filmography. And we're going to go ahead and rank them. We're going to find out, how I feel about David Fincher's movies. I am a big fan of his. So let's find out, where I rank them. All 12 of these movies that he has. And as you can see here, I've got it all set up. And all of his movies are down here at the bottom. Let's go through the tiers, guys. The highest level that I'm assigning is warm, buttery popcorn and a cold drink. And for me, there's nothing better than that. You get the warm, buttery popcorn. It kind of melts in your mouth when you're chewing it. Just the right amount of salt on it, and you got that ice cold drink. That's the absolute best for me. Next level down, just warm, buttery popcorn. The popcorn is still fantastic, but you don't have the drink to wash it down. It's still amazing. It's just not quite top tier. Next level, at least it's not stale. It's pretty good popcorn. It's popcorn. You eat it, you enjoy it, but it's nothing to write home about. You kind of forget about it after it's over. Stale popcorn, this is where it's pretty bad. You might eat a little bit out of it, and then you got to get rid of it because it's like, this isn't really good. Or you power through it just because you just want something to chew on. So we're near the bottom there. And the very bottom level is this even popcorn? You weren't really looking when you were at the concession stand, and the little pimply faced teenager back there, he just scraping all the little bitty pieces that are left at the bottom of the little popcorn bin down there. You get a lot of unpopped kernels, and just dumps it in your bucket, and sends you off on your way into your theater, and you reach down and you start, you just got a handful of crumbs basically when you think you got popcorn. So let's find out where all of these Fincher movies fall on that scale, and we're going to do them in chronological order. So that brings us to Alien 3. So Alien 3 is a movie that David Fincher himself had disowned long ago. The studio just interfered with it and just hacked it all to hell. Especially if you listen to him tell it. As I watch it, it's not a great movie for sure, but it's not the worst movie. It's not the worst movie. So I'm gonna put Alien 3 in stale popcorn, and that brings us to the next movie. Next movie is Seven. As far as I'm concerned, Seven is a masterpiece. It's what I call a perfect movie, just from beginning to end. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So there's just no doubt that Seven is going up here. Warm, buttery popcorn and a cold drink. It's chef's kiss. Wow, it's just that movie. Next movie is The Game. Now The Game is one I've only seen once, and it's been a long time since I've seen it. But I do remember liking the movie. I didn't love the movie, so I'm gonna go ahead and put The Game in the at least it's not stale section. Maybe a rewatch might move it up, might move it down, but it probably would move it up. But for right now, I'm gonna leave it as at least it's not stale. Fincher's next film was Fight Club, and here is where I'm gonna get a lot of pushback. Maybe not a lot of pushback, because I do like Fight Club. I really like Fight Club, actually. I just can't quite put it up there in that warm buttery popcorn and a cold drink. The ending left me flat, but this is another movie I haven't seen in a while. I do plan on going back and rewatching. So when I do, I wouldn't doubt if it moved up to that very top tier. But for now, we're just going to put Fight Club as warm buttery popcorn. Really good movie. Excellent movie, but one I need to revisit and see if it still holds up for me. Next movie he did was Panic Room. This was Jodie Foster, and was this a young Kristen Stewart, I believe, where they had the burglars to break in the house, and she's rich enough to have a panic room, which is basically a giant safe for people. So she in her house, so she goes in there and locks the door while the burglars are outside, and they got to figure out either how to get out, or how to get help, because the bad guys don't seem to be leaving. Um, so Panic Room, another solid movie. Um, wasn't a wasn't a great movie, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a pretty good movie. So it's definitely watchable, and it's gonna go up here with at least it's not stale, and I'm gonna keep it behind the game. So I do remember the game being better than Panic Room, so I'll keep it that way. Next movie is Zodiac, and if you thought my take on Fight Club was bad, or if you didn't think I like Fight Club enough, let's talk about Zodiac. Zodiac, I know everybody loves Zodiac. They just adore this movie. It's based on the true story of the Zodiac killer, or the investigation into the Zodiac killer, and how how that all turned out. And for me, it feels like 2/3 of a movie. It's 3 hour film, and the first 2 hours are magnificent. The first 2 hours, one, they zip by. Two, it's tense. You're on the edge of your seat, and you just can't stop watching. You're glued to the screen. That third hour, well, it shifts because in the real life investigation, the trail ran cold on the Zodiac killer, and to this day, he's never been caught, at least as far as I know. And so we still spend another hour in this movie. Well, what do we do for another hour in the movie? Well, for a little while, there's some investigation, but it really dives into the personal lives of the reporters that are have been on the case for all this time. And the movie at that point just drags for a whole hour. I mean, there's some interesting stuff in there. The performances are good, but not my favorite part of the movie, and it just drags the whole thing down for me. So for Zodiac, I'm not gonna go stale popcorn, and definitely better than Panic Room, and I'm gonna say even better than the game, but I'm gonna say at least it's not stale. So good movie. It just it kind of falls apart for me at the end, and I know a lot of people will say, oh, that's where we get to know the characters and all that. It just didn't work out for me that way. Next movie is The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. And this is one of those movies that while you're watching it is really, really good. And then you think about it a little bit and it's not as good. And yes, it is definitely an odd movie. This is the movie where Brad Pitt's character, Benjamin Button, ages backwards, and the lifelong love affair he has with Kate Blanchett's character, who's aging forward. So it's just weird for most of the movie. Fantastic performance from Taraji P. Henson as his caregiver, as Benjamin Button was just dropped off on her doorstep when he was born and looking like he was 100 years old. So it's it's not a great movie, but it's a odd movie, very interesting movie, and I'm gonna go with at least it's not stale for Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and I'm even gonna go ahead of the game, but not quite ahead of Zodiac, so I'm gonna keep it there. And we're getting about halfway through, a little more than halfway through now. We got 5 movies left, and the next movie is The Social Network. So The Social Network, basically everybody calls it the Facebook movie, and it's really a critique on the Facebook era and how it came to be. Not necessarily the Facebook era going forward, because we know that it has morphed into even more things, and depending on who you ask, more terrifying things uh, 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 about corporate greed and consumerism and capitalism and all those things, and all of that is in this movie, and it's a very poignant critique of that, but it's also a character study of Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, and the people that are closest to him around him. The Winklevoss twins, I believe there is the name, the ones both played by Armie Hammer, and it is a fantastic movie. So I'm gonna go right to the top with warm buttery popcorn and a cold drink for The Social Network, but definitely behind Seven. And that brings me to, you know what? I'm actually not. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna go with the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is his next movie, and this was a remake of the Swedish movie from just a couple years prior to this. And technically, if you ask Fincher, it's not a remake of that movie. It's another adaptation of the book of the same name, and I've no problem with that. It's a little bit different take on the Swedish film. Both are fantastic, and honestly, I think this one is actually a better. Is actually a little better. It's a shame that he didn't get to finish the trilogy, which I would have loved to see what he did with the other two films. But this film with the performance by Rooney Mara and David Craig, also excellent. This one also goes on that top tier, and warm buttery popcorn and a cold drink for Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, even ahead of the Social Network, because the difference between the two for me is that the Social Network does have some spots where it drags a little bit and can be a bit preachy. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo does have some social commentary in it. There's lots of it, but it doesn't feel as preachy as it does in the Social Network. So that gives it the slight nod. Next movie is Gone Girl, and for me, this is Fincher's other masterpiece, if you ask me. Uh, Rosamund Pike just gave the performance of a lifetime, and I honestly thought she should have won Best Actress that year. Uh, Ben Affleck, in one of his better performances, he's a lot of people kind of give him a hard time about his acting. I think he's a good actor. I don't think he's a great actor, and I think this is one of his better performances, like I said. And the story was just enthralling. And I remember going to the theater. My wife and I went, and we just were both kind of on the edge of our seat for the whole time, wondering what this woman was going to do next. And when it ended, we just both kind of had that, oh wow, the moment right at the end. So for me, this is definitely going up on that top tier. Warm buttery popcorn and a cold drink, and it will go ahead of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but still not ahead of Seven. And next movie is Mank. This was his first Netflix movie, and this was the story of Mank. I forget his first name. Is it Edward? I'm not sure. Gary Oldman plays Mank, and this is the guy who wrote Citizen Kane, and this is basically about all the things that he was going through while he was trying to write this movie, and he had a pretty interesting time of it to do that, but I don't think the movie was executed very well. The look of the movie is good. It's a black and white movie, and it's excellently shot. And the acting is great. Gary Oldman is always fantastic, but just the story just kind of drags, and it never really gets out of first gear for me. And by the end of it, I hated the movie. It's also really long, so I'm gonna give this one down on that bottom tier. Is this even popcorn? I don't think so. It's I reach in this bucket that's labeled Mank, and I'm pissed off at what I pulled out. So I guess that bottom tier for me. And here is the latest movie, is The Killer, also a Netflix movie, and I hope we get a physical for release for this movie. I did like this movie. Um, Michael Fassbender plays the main character. He's an assassin, and it's one of those movies where the assassin botches an assignment, and now everybody in the world is after him. So it's that movie. We've seen that storyline before, but the way it's done here is a bit unique. We get a lot of inner monologue. I hesitate to call it narration because he doesn't really narrate the story so much as he's just kind of telling you how he feels about things. And I thought that was done really, really well. And I'm a guy who's, I'm kind of hard on narration, to be honest with you. And it worked for me here. And Fassbender was fantastic. Some of the action scenes were really good. Two things happened though. The movie did drag a bit in spots, and that I think was by design, because this is not your typical assassin movie. This is a lot more methodical, a lot more brooding movie. It's not just he's going from action scene to action scene to action scene, fight, fight, fight. He's not doing that. But there is, a good deal of it in the film. And then the ending was just so abrupt. It just felt out of place. And I might need a rewatch to see how I feel about it on a second watch. But for right now, good movie. Did enjoy it. Not quite getting in those top two tiers. I'm gonna say at least it's not stale, and I'm gonna put this one behind Zodiac and ahead of The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. So there you have it. That's what I have for my David Fincher rankings, guys. That's how I see it. Let me know what you think of my rankings. Let me know how you rank them. What's your top movie? Is it seven like mine? should be. You know it should be, right? If it's not, I'll forgive you. Just tell me what is your number one. Did I have Zodiac too low, Fight Club too low? Did I have something else too high? You know, and was I too hard on Mank? Just let me know, guys. That's all I have for you on this one. I will catch you on the next one. Bye.